Hello and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to today's Career Discovery live stream presentation on career education, becoming a teacher. My name is Cindy Sanford and I am the Education Outreach Team Leader at the Bank of North Dakota, and I'll be your facilitator today for the live stream. Our panelists today teach all different grade levels, so if you've thought about going into teaching, but not sure which grade you're looking at, our panelists will share their experience teaching at different grade levels and their different experiences. Some housekeeping rules before we get started. In the menu of the webinar, there's a Q&A function that we encourage all of you to use for questions or comments that you have about today's webinar. We'll answer those questions at the end of the webinar. But if you have a question, go ahead and put it in so you don't forget it. Today, we have three great panelists. The first one, Justin Johnsrud, was born and raised in Watford City, and he's been teaching at Watford City since 2008. He taught science to start his career and has been an agricultural education teacher since moving back to Watford City. For the past 2 years, he's been involved in the Core of Discovery Consortium that delivers high-tech equipment to 23 member schools across Northwest North Dakota. Justin attended the University of Mary and Wilson State College and graduated from North Dakota State University in 1999. During his 21-year teaching career, he's also been an FFA supervisor, coach of football, baseball, and basketball. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you.
Lexi Schaefer is in her third year of teaching at Solon High School. Her school is located on the edge of the Standing Rock Reservation. She is certified to teach 5th through 12th grade social studies, 9th through 12th grade facts, health, and computer science. She organizes and operates the tutoring program in her school, and it's also one of 2 people on her school's technology team. She obtained her Bachelor of Science in Education from Dickinson State University on the Bismarck State campus. She is currently pursuing her master's in school counseling and will plan to graduate in May of 2021. Welcome, Lexi. Kayla Dornfeld was named the 2020 Top Educator of the Year and the 2019 North Dakota Teacher of the Year. She's a 2-time Global 100 honoree. She has 14 years of teaching experience in 2nd and 3rd grade, also kindergarten. Kayla holds her master's degree in elementary education from the University of North Dakota. In September of 2018, she received the University of North Dakota Sioux Award. This year, in 2021, she was named the Youth Volunteer of the Year by St. Jude Hospital. She said that's one of the best things she's ever had. Governor Bergen recognized Kayla for her contributions in education and assigned her to the chair of the North Dakota Innovative Education Task Force. She's also an influencer and also author and co-author of several books. We'll let her talk about those where they're available. So welcome, Kayla.
Thank you.
So with that, we're going to get started. So our very first question, and I'm going to start with Kayla. Why did you decide to go into education?
So 2 stories. First, I always thought I was going to be a teacher since my first day of kindergarten. And I remember wanting to be just like my kindergarten teacher. She was just so friendly and fun, and you could tell she loved her job, and she was just excited about, her job. And she also happened to be my mom. And so it was a really unique situation that my mom was my kindergarten teacher. And I always joked that I would end up teaching kindergarten. Kindergarten was also the only year I was ever sent to the principal's office. So Mom, I still owe Mom for that one probably. But I actually, in the long run, now that I look back, like I always knew I was going to be a teacher because I always knew I felt I'm called to love and serve kids. And I'm just uniquely, I think, built to work with kids. And I think that's why I went into education, is not only because I was so inspired by my mom who taught kindergarten and my dad who taught K through 12 music, but also that I just knew I wanted to love and serve kids. And that also means I get to work with families and colleagues, and every day is different. Especially, I teach kindergarten this year, and every single day is different and unique and fun and challenging. And that's kind of why I went into it, is mostly to just love and serve kids.
Well, thank you. Justin?
Uh, Quite a different story than Kayla's. I graduated from high school and had really no idea what I was going to do. Went to college because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. Took my time, took a lot of generals, a lot of different classes, and then later in my college career, I had the opportunity to coach 5th and 6th grade football in Fargo. Gentleman asked me if I'd be interested, and I said I would, and really that's where it started. Just found that I really enjoyed working with young people, and I'd taken a lot of different classes. Ag education was one that fit well in the classes that I'd taken in college, and that kind of made my mind up later on. My father owned a heating and air conditioning shop in Watford City. My mother was the county recorder. Didn't have anybody with educational backgrounds or anything, but haven't regretted the decision since.
So I have to ask, were there any teachers in school in Watford City that might have drove you that way a little? Anybody memorable that might have had an impact?
Absolutely. My coaches obviously were also teachers. They had a big impact on me. And then both of the ag education instructors at Watford City High School at the time, Mr. Kent Pelton and Mr. Corey Lose, really enjoyed what they did in their classes and thought that would be a really great line of work to do every day.
Well, thank you. Lexi?
Yeah, I would say my kind of journey into education was quite different as well. I started out in the National Guard as a combat medic, and so I thought the very most natural progression of that for my career would be to go into nursing. And so I traveled down the nursing path for about a year and a half until I just realized that I didn't really have a passion for civilian medicine. Like, I enjoyed kind of the rough and tumble dirtiness of the National Guard. And so I switched my major from nursing to education, and I was really kind of awakened with this passion I didn't really know I had, other than I do enjoy talking and communicating with people and kind of working with people. But through the National Guard, I developed a lot of leadership skills, and I had to teach a lot of classes. And so I thought that that would be a more natural role for me. And I knew immediately once I switched my major that that was a good fit for me. I enjoy working with people, I guess not only in the National Guard who were my age, but I enjoyed teaching people at different age levels, and I enjoyed working with people of different skill sets. And so I think that's what I realized really complemented my passion for education, was being able to work with students of different levels. And I kind of added the history component of that because that's really where my passion lied when I was in high school. Two of my most inspirational teachers from high school were actually English teachers. And not that I don't love English, but it certainly wasn't my passion. So I started with a nursing degree and ended up teaching all sorts of different things at the high school level. So
Those are all great stories, and I think that is a good thing for students as they're listening to realize that sometimes it's not what you're going to do for the rest of your life. You may take a few curves before you get there. All right, I'll start with Justin on the second question. What has changed in education since you started your career? And we might have taken 2020 out of there, but what are some of the changes you've seen in your 21 years?
Well, just technology to start with. My first teaching job was in Regent, North Dakota, south of Dickinson. And I remember they had me take a class in the evenings at Dickinson High School, and it was teaching with technology. And most of that class centered around teaching teachers how to use a mouse, how to surf the web. Those were not common things when I started. obviously you had a computer in your room, or I did, but it was just the one. You know, mostly used for grades. That was about it. But just the wealth of information that's available to kids now. If it wasn't on a VHS tape when I started, they didn't see the video, and it took some searching. Now in 5 minutes, you can come up with 200 videos, and the difference is you have to search through those and find a good one or a relevant one to the kids now. So technology's been a big part of it.
Yes, I remember those days. I taught a class called Hug Your Computer, It Won't Hurt You. And that's what we did, was we played solitaire so they could use their mouse.
Right.
So Lexi, what changed?
I think I'm at an unfair advantage. I've only been teaching for 3 years, so of course, in the course of 3 years, not a lot of significant change has occurred, but kind of just to piggyback off what Justin said, really in the last couple, like the immediate 2 years, our school district has gone through a change in technology. We went from not being one-to-one in any devices for our students to implementing one-to-one with our iPads. And so learning how to incorporate that into the classroom in a meaningful way and engaging way has been probably the biggest challenge and change in my career. But like I said, I'm certainly at an unfair advantage with my lack of experience in the education world. But
Well, I think it still stands true. So as it changes daily. Kayla.
I kind of think of two things. So this is my 14th year of teaching, and first of all, I agree with Justin. Technology has changed everything. When I first started teaching, we didn't have iPads. There were iPods, I think, at that time. We still had to go to the computer lab with our kids, and they had the big, colorful Mac built-in computers that had everything, and we would practice, you know, like typing or maybe math facts, I think. And then eventually, when I was teaching in Thief River Falls, Minnesota, around 2011, we had a huge referendum pass, and we were able to go K through 12, one-to-one technology with iPads and mini iPads and MacBooks, and that's kind of when everything changed, and we could really, you know, make huge differences with kids by giving them just so many other alternatives for showing what they know, rather than just like a paper and a pencil. So I think first of all, technology, which is ever changing. And then I think the second thing is the standards that we use to measure our kids, and that we use to be teachers. Those have also made changes throughout the years too. And those will continue to change based on, you know, lots of different things that happen in our world and what we decide is important to measure and test with students and with kids.
Well, thank you. Those are all very good points to look at. And I guess what I took away from that is that education is constantly changing. So, okay. The next, Lexi, we'll start with you. What do you find the most challenging about your job in a normal year, if there is such a thing as a normal year?
right, normal year. I think one of the most challenging aspects about education in general, at least in my experience, and the area of which I teach, is kind of a combination of finding a balance between being an effective teacher and kind of knowing that you're doing enough, and then finding that balance of, I have put forth X amount of effort, now we kind of need to be met at least halfway by some of our students. And I think my first year, one of the biggest things I struggled with was understanding when I was doing more than, you know, putting more effort into it than the student was, and kind of understanding how to find that balance. And that kind of goes a long ways in the classroom, is understanding that you're being an effective teacher and, you know, doing the best you can to help and support students, but understanding that sometimes at the high school level, they have to meet you halfway. And I think that kind of plays a role into motivation and engagement, which I think can be a really challenging component of being in education. And it's something that I'm even still, you know, navigating and trying to figure out, you know, with the implementation of technology, how we can engage students in a more hands-on and problem-based way. And so I think those are two of the biggest challenges that I've faced in my career so far.
Those are good. Very good. Kayla, what are yours?
I think for me, it's just finding the balance, kind of the sweet spot of when to leave school and what to leave at school so that I can still be my best self when I get home to my husband and my stepkids and still be a really good mom and not just a tired mom who's given everything to all of my kindergartners all day long. So I would say finding that it's kind of that sweet spot or that balance.
Yes, balance is hard to find, I think, everywhere. Justin.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those. You know, one thing that has probably been my biggest struggle just from teaching so long is the differentiation of instruction, which has been a big buzzword for a long time. You know, when I started, you did things a certain way and everybody kind of did them that way. But now we're finding with kids, to get them engaged, to get them to take a little bit of ownership in their own learning, we do really have to find new ways to reach them. Give them avenues that they enjoy to learn the same materials. So that's something personally that I've probably struggled with the most over the last few years. And the time is always the time is a big thing. I'm a coach as well. You know, in my early years, I coached 3 sports: football, basketball, and baseball. So it was all year long. My wife has gotten me down to just 1 currently. But my kids were always involved, and that was the big thing. My kids loved it. They grew up in the gym and on the ball field with me, and without their support, it certainly would not have been as easy. The time management part.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll go back to Kayla to start. Or did you? Yeah. What do you like most about your job?
Oh my gosh. My kids, for sure. I teach kindergarten, so they're 5 and 6 years old. And literally every day is exciting and so fun for them. And every activity that we do is just the best day ever to them. And they're just so moldable and special in that this is their first year of school. And it's their first experience with what school is. And so I would say, like, how every day is different. Even though, you know, you have your schedule and you teach math and you teach science and you teach the same subjects, you know, in a certain order every single day. Like, there's an unpredictability factor with, you know, 5-year-old kids that is pretty amazing and awesome. And so there's just lots of laughter and fun and excitement and just really positive vibes and good energy all day long in our classroom. And I think that's what I like most, is just knowing that I get to go do that every single day. I get to start my day with a dance party and laugh all day long with kids, and that's my job. I get to do that. And so that is, I think, what I like most, the fun factor.
So I'm going to put a second part to this question is, what do you learn from your students every day?
Oh my gosh. Humility, humbleness, looking at learning through their eyes and seeing things in new ways, because lots of times it's their first experience with something. And so it gives me a new perspective. But for sure, humbleness. They teach me new things every single day, and they have 0 filter. So they will just tell you exactly how they think or how they feel, or ask you questions about anything and everything. And so I would say for sure, humbleness, humility, and just a different perspective for sure.
Thank you. Justin?
Very much the same. The relationships with the students. I'm, you know, mid-40s, but I still feel like I'm 15 years old and act like that sometimes too. But the relationships with the kids and just getting to hang out with them every day, it keeps you young. And in the world of career and technical education, we're teaching skills. This week we were setting toilets. you know, in case they ever needed to do that at their house, or they were interested in a career in plumbing. So some of those things that I get to teach kids, that no matter what career they choose later on, they're going to have a house or an apartment sometime, and hopefully they look back and say, oh yeah, I remember Mr. J telling me about that. And really the part that kind of makes it fulfilling is teaching the high school kids is a couple years after they graduate, and you bump into them at the grocery store or something, and they come up and shake your hand and say, man, you know, you taught me this and I sure did use that. And just those relationships with the kids is the best part of the job by far.
And what is your takeaway from them?
Well, like I said, you know, we teach a lot of different skills, and as an ag education teacher, I don't know if anybody's prepared to teach those classes when they get out. Just the wide variety of subjects and things that you can teach. So, you know, we have the kids teach me things all the time, whether it's, you know, wiring or electricity. They have a lot of a knowledge coming from their homes as well sometimes. So I learn just as much from them and then incorporate it in my class later on as we go forward.
Thank you. Lexi, what do you like most about your job?
Yeah, so I, of course, like everybody has mentioned, I love building relationships with my students. Some of my kids come from very challenging homes, as does probably everybody's kids in the education system. And it's such a rewarding experience to kind of see through their eyes how they can learn to trust somebody that's going to be there for them. And they can learn to build this relationship with an adult when, for the very first time, you know, they may feel safe around someone, or, you know, kind of comforted by coming to school and being safe in our building. And so I've learned so much about students in the aspect that, you know, just because they're not the straight A student, or, you know, this filling this role or whatever, they come here because they know we're going to be here and we're going to show up for them. And I love that aspect of my job, because that's what's most rewarding, is when you finally reach that student that you've been trying, you know, that maybe is the naughty one in class, but they know that you're going to be there for them, and they know that you're probably the most consistent part of your job. And so I love developing those relationships and kind of helping them learn about themselves through that process. And of course, I guess what I learned from them is just the same, that they, you know, sometimes our kids love really hard, and they love that we're there for them, and they love that we can support them. And so through that process, they're able to open up to me and teach me about their culture. You know, our students are predominantly Lakota and Dakota Sioux, and they have so much to give, and they have such a unique culture that they want to share with us. And I love to have learned that. And kind of, as Justin was mentioning, through CTE, you can kind of teach students about those life skills and those things that they need to learn at home. And one of the classes I teach right now is sewing. And so one of the big components of their culture is sewing ribbon skirts and ribbon shirts, which is like a tribal wear that they wear for like powwows and, you know, celebratory events. And so I didn't know how to make ribbon skirts and shirts before I started teaching here. And we brought somebody in from the community, and now the kids love it. It's one of their most favorite aspects of the job. So it's so rewarding for them to trust me to learn about their culture, as being, you know, I'm German in my heritage, so to be someone who is different than them, but they really learn to open up, and that all starts with building relationships. And so that's what I love the most about my job.
Oh. Well, thank you all three with those answers. It sounds like you're all making huge impacts of our students from North Dakota, which will be, you know, maybe in a few years we'll have one of them on this, or maybe it'll be a hologram, who knows? So, okay, Justin, what advice would you give a student considering a career in education?
Probably the best advice I can give goes back to how we all kind of answered the last question, and that's concentrate on those relationships first. It does not matter how much you know. If you don't have a relationship with those young people, a lot of times they do not want to listen. And take that to heart. I don't have dance parties in my class. I don't smile very often. The kids always say, "Man, you finally smiled." And it's not about, you have to find your own niche, what works for you. Some teachers are really, really bubbly and can pull that off. I can't. So I use sarcasm and humor and just to build those relationships, because once you reach those kids on a personal level, then they'll listen to what you have to say, and then they're ready to learn whatever you want to teach them.
Thank you. Lexi, what advice would you give?
I think one really important decision you make, or I guess experience you could have before deciding if education is right for you, is depending on where you're at in college, or if you have a couple of years in college, you could get an emergency sublicense. That was something that I did when I was in high school, or when I was in college, and I kind of integrated myself into some of the school districts in the area. And that kind of helped me learn at least what grade level I wanted to be. I subbed a lot at the elementary level, and while I thought they were wonderful kids, it wasn't something I could see myself in, in a full-time position. And even once I was into the education program, I came to the building I actually teach in today, and I did a lot of subbing here, or I asked to do my practicum here. And so I think sometimes putting yourselves in those positions to do like internships or apprenticeships can be really beneficial to determining whether or not you are going to actually be interested in that in the future.
Thank you. Kayla, what advice would you give?
I would say, like, get into classrooms and see what you like and what you don't like. And I think, like, I'm a prime example of that. I thought I was going to teach kindergarten, and I did I think a 30-hour or a 60-hour practicum in college in a second grade classroom. And I was like, I am never, ever teaching kindergarten. Like, second graders know how to tie their shoes and wipe their nose and change their pants, and they can read, and I'm not doing kindergarten. And then, like, lo and behold, 2021 came, and there was a kindergarten position, and I just felt like I wanted to change, and I'm so glad that I did. And I remember, like, okay, I really actually did love kindergarten, but I think just getting to different classrooms, observe different teachers in the same grade level, observe different grade levels, and just watch or just listen, or ask if you can, help out or volunteer, and see what you like and what you don't like. But get into lots of classrooms. That's what I would recommend.
Yes, those apprenticeships, internships, or getting in anything is always a good idea. Okay, last question, and this one, Lexi, we'll start with you. What's something about your job that you didn't expect when you went into it?
Oh, I know I even thought about this question ahead of time, and now I feel like, oh no. What is something about my job that I didn't expect? I think I was very naive to the time commitment, education included. And I don't want that to scare prospective people that want to go into the teaching field, but my first year of teaching, and even for as dynamic as my school district is in terms of, we do a trimester scheduling, so our classes are scheduled, our classes are changing quite frequently, but it is a lot of work to prepare the lessons that but the lessons that I want to, the quality of lessons that I want to teach take a lot of time to prepare. And so that's something that I wasn't really expecting. I know a lot of people say, like, your first year of teaching is potentially the most time consuming, but I think I've yet to see the turnaround where I'm like, yes, this is something I did last year, so I can reuse it, kind of thing. But it's a great component to my job, but that's where finding that key balance comes in, because you have to know, like Kayla said, when to just kind of leave this at the door and accept that what you've done, is good enough, and hope that it works. And, teaching is a really reflective practice. So I'm constantly going to be making revisions, I think, and I'll never really fully be happy with something that I've done in the past anyways. So, but definitely time.
Well, you're going to school too, so you've added that on top of it. So, Kayla, what didn't you expect?
I don't think I expected to become so close with the families of the students that I taught. I mean, I'm still really close and connected with students that I taught and their families from, I mean, they were in second grade and they're now, in college. And I don't think I realized how hard at the end of every school year would be for me to let go of those kids, because they become like a family, and you spend 180 school days with them or however many days it is, and then you're just supposed to like one day just stop doing that and pass them off to another teacher. And for me that is like, it's really hard, and now this will be my 14th year doing it and it's still really hard. But I think like that's something that I didn't expect, is that I was going to become so close with the students and so close with their families, and really just to feel like I have such support from them and be able to support them, was just kind of an aspect that I wasn't expecting, and it's such a blessing.
Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, I didn't know that I'd like it so much, I guess is probably the biggest thing. Kind of echoing a lot of the relationship pieces, and really, when you have kids for, in my case, 9th through 12th grade, sometimes I had some junior high classes, but then you have them on the football field and you have them in other places. You spend more time with those kids than they spend with their families a lot of times, and my family might say the same. You spend a little bit more time with them. So, but never regretted a second. The other thing I would add is just in my bio, how my job has kind of changed. As an ag teacher, I was teaching a lot of the high tech equipment that now I rotate around to 23 other schools, so that they have the opportunity to get those. It's high dollar machines that every school can't afford. So you get 23 of them together and purchase those, and then we rotate them around, and everybody gets 6 weeks of them. So there's a lot of different avenues educationally that your job can take you as you move through. So something I certainly did not expect to be doing when I started teaching 21 years ago.
Okay. The big one, unmute, right? With that is our last question. Is there anything you would like to add before we end? Kayla, I'll start with you. Is there anything you would like to want to talk about your books, or you want to talk about anything special?
I think I would just say, like, I feel like I truly have the best job in the entire world. And when you know, you know. You know if it's right for you, you know if it's not right for you. And I think there's some people like me who grew up in education and just knew they were going to be teachers. Or there might be people who didn't grow up, just like Justin, without having education in his family, and still that's where he ended up. But I really do feel like I have the jackpot, like the best job in the entire world. And so I think if you're thinking about it, get into some classrooms, and or you could reach out to me on social media, on all of my social medias. My website even is Top Dog Teaching. Look me up or send me a message. You can come visit my classroom anytime. Yeah, and just get connected with some teachers and get into classrooms. And I'd encourage you to just give it a try, because I really think it is like the best job.
What a great offer to any of you out there looking at going into education. So can you say your website one more time?
Sure. The website is topdogteaching.com. Right. And on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those, it's at Top Dog Teaching.
Okay. Thank you. Justin, any last words of wisdom?
Sure. I would just I'll give the same advice that I give to my kids in my classes. We concentrate a lot on apprenticeships. I have lots of partnerships with the industry around Watford City and the Bakken oil field. We have speakers come in and talk about all the different types of jobs and things that are available. It's important to know what you want to do. It's also just as important to know what you don't like or what you don't want to do. I would say just going to college like I did with no path with today's prices probably isn't the best route. But right, get into an apprenticeship, pop into some classrooms, and make sure that it's something that you continue on. I graduated with an individual that after he learned in student teaching that he did not want to be a teacher. It took him 5 years to figure that out. He's okay now. He's a seed salesman. It all worked out for him. But knowing what you don't like doing is just as important as knowing what you do like.
Thank you. Lexi, any last words?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I certainly echo Caleb. I knew instantly once I switched my major from nursing to teaching that was a better fit for me, and I just felt very natural. And so I certainly agree. If you kind of feel deep down that something you're doing isn't working out for you, or it's never too late to change your mind. It's never too late to kind of figure out a different path that's going to work for you. And I'll of course always advise, like trying different things ahead of time, but sometimes you just got to pick a path and see if it works out. And when it's not, then you can kind of reevaluate. But it's definitely a good fit, and you kind of just feel when it's right.
Okay, let me see if there's any questions here. I think you've done an excellent job of just explaining education, and I do thank you. You truly are molding our youth of North Dakota into successful North Dakotians. Even though some of them are coming in, we're going to keep them here and grow our state. But I appreciate all your time, and if someone wants to reach out to you, everyone seems to be available if you have questions, and we do appreciate that too. So with that, we do have the next Career Discovery live stream is next Tuesday, and Justin, it's going to be on welding. So so if you want to, you don't have to plan that day. It's on April 6th at 1 o'clock if you want your students to look at that and different careers in welding and where they can take you. You can register for all the Career Discovery webinars on the Career Discovery tab on our Career Compass website. And you can view all the previous presentations there as well. Justin, I think of you, we had one in the fall that had all of the they called it non-degree, but it was the unions presented. We had just a lot of interns that came in, and they spoke of their experience and how they got their experiences. So those are still on our website to go out and preview. I call it the "What do I want to do when I grow up" part. They can look at all of those, and we're continuing to add more and more of those all the time. So if there's I don't see any questions. You guys covered it so thoroughly. So with that, I thank you. Have a great, I think 4-day weekend you have coming up. So sorry to keep you so late at school. And thanks again. We appreciate your time and all of your great information. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.